In this video, we are going to make corrections and review the topics of your Unit 3 Anchor project. So let's get started. All right, so your goal was to make different questions to match the topics that we covered in Unit 3. So unit rates, percentages, conversions, things like that. You were provided samples to use and that you could modify the question to fit what you want. So let's look at question 1. Write and solve a unit rate problem where you need to find the unit rate first, then multiply to get what you are searching for. I'm going to look at the sample provided down here, and I'm going to copy it up. If it lets me. There we go. It costs $30 for 5 boxes of cookies. What is the cost of 7 boxes? So what we're going to do is we are going to change these numbers. Actually, we don't even need to. We're just going to use this. Okay. So first thing we need to do is write down our original information. It is $30 for 5 boxes. We need to know the cost of 7 boxes. So we need to think about, can we multiply easily to get from 5 boxes to 7 boxes? No, we cannot, so we need to make a stop in the middle. We are going to find the cost of 1 box. So now I need you to think about, how would I go from the cost of 5 boxes to the cost of 1 box? That's right, we would divide by 5. So let me write that over here. $30, so if we divide the boxes by 5, we need to divide the costs by 5. $30 divided by 5 is $6 for 1 box. But that is not what the question is asking. It is asking the cost of 7 boxes. So now we need to think about, how would I go from the cost of 1 box to 7 boxes? That's right, we would multiply by 7. $6 times 7 is $42 for 7 boxes. All right, now you are going to try a question like this on your own, and then we will move on. All right, let's move on. Write a problem where you need to decide which is the better deal. So I'm going to copy the question down here. Paste it in there. All right. Coke costs $5.46 for 6 cans. Pepsi costs $6.40 for 8 cans. Which is the better deal? All right, so we cannot compare 6 cans and 8 cans because those are different amounts. So we need to find the unit rate for each. So let's start with Coke. For Coke, $5.40 for 6 cans. But we're going to find the cost of 1 can. How do I go from 6 cans to 1 can? That's right, I divide by 6. So now we need to think about $5.40 divided by 6. Don't let the decimal trip you up. Think about, what is 54 divided by 6? 54 divided by 6 is 9, but then we need to account for that decimal point. So it would actually be 90 cents. 500, because 540 divided by 6 would be 90. Scoot that decimal 2 times over to match. It would be 90 cents for 1 can for Coke. All right, now let's look at Pepsi. Pepsi costs $6.48 for 8 cans. And we want to find the cost of 1 can. How do I go from the cost of 8 cans to the cost of 1 can? That's right, we divide by 5. No, by 8, sorry. All right, now we need to think about $6.40 divided by 8. 640 divided by 8, if you take out the decimal point, is 80. And then we need to put that decimal point back. So there's 2 places after the decimal in the dividend. So there needs to be 2 places after the decimal in the divisor. So it would be 80 cents. So now the question is, which is the better deal? Pepsi would be the better deal because it is 80 cents per can, whereas Coke is 90 cents per can. All right, let's keep going. All right, write and solve a problem where you need to decide who is going faster. I'm going to copy our sample. Paste it here. Okay. And make it a little bigger. All right, train A travels 100 meters in 5 seconds. I'm going to write that down. Train B travels 90 meters in 3 seconds. Who is traveling at a faster speed? To get a speed, we need the rate of 1 second. Because we can't compare 5 seconds and 3 seconds, those are different amounts of time. We need to make them out of the same amount of time, and the easiest way to do that is to find the unit speed, or the speed of 1 second. All right, so to find the speed of train A, to go from 5 seconds to 1 second, that's right, we divide by 5. If we divide the seconds by 5, we need to divide the meters by 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20 meters in 1 second. Now let's look at train B, 90 meters in 3 seconds. To go from 3 seconds to 1 second, that's right, we divide by 3. 90 meters divided by 3 is, that's right, 30 meters per second. All right, so now we are going to do a similar question before we move on. All right, let's move on. Write and solve a problem where you need to decide which is greater, a number of quarts or a number of gallons. I'm going to copy our sample, which is greater, 20 quarts or 3 gallons. All right, so we cannot compare these as is because they're in different units. So we need to change one of these into the other. It's usually easier to turn the smaller amount into the larger amount. So we are going to turn 3 gallons into quarts. So we need to think about what information do we know about quarts and gallons? We know that 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts. So that means 3 gallons would be equal to what? If you take 1 gallon, multiply it by 3, you would get, that is right, 12 quarts. So we know that 20 quarts is greater because it is more than 12 quarts, which is 3 gallons. All right, now you try. All right, moving along. Write and solve a problem where you need to convert fluid ounces into cups. I again am going to copy our sample. A container of juice contains 88 fluid ounces. How many cups is this? All right, so we need 88 fluid ounces equals a number of cups. Now we need to think about, what do we know about cups and ounces? I know that 8 fluid ounces is equal to 1 cup. So now we need to think about here, how did I go from 8 fluid ounces to 88 fluid ounces? That's right, we multiplied by 11. So 1 cup times 11 is 11 cups. All right, try a similar one. Moving on to question 6. We are halfway done. Write and solve a problem where you need to find 25% of a number. Again, I'm just going to copy this. All right, at a soccer game, 25% of kids forgot their water bottle. If there are 28 kids, how many forgot their water bottle? So, we need to make our chart. We know that the 28 kids is the total, so that is 100%, because that's the total number of kids. Now, but we only want 25%. To go from 100% down to 25%, you can, that's right, divide by 4. So let's write that in the middle here. 28 kids divided by 4 is 7 kids, matches 25%. 28 kids is 100%. 7 kids, if you divide that by 4 to get 25%, you get 7 kids. And we know to divide by 4 because 4 25s make 100. All right, you try. All right, on to the next one. Write and solve a problem where you need to find 30% of a number. Going to copy our sample again. All right, a coat at the store is on sale for 30% off. If the coat is originally $90, how much money would you save? All right, let's start this. So the coat is originally $90. So that is going to represent 100% because that is the cost of the coat. We don't want 100% of the cost. We want 30% of the cost because we're trying to find the savings. So looking here, I left some space in the middle for a reason, because we cannot go directly from 100% to 30%. We need to find a middle stop. That middle stop, so let's think about the benchmarks that we know. 20%, 10%, 50%, 25%. Which of those would be helpful in this situation? That's right, 10% would be helpful in this situation because we can go to 10% and then multiply to go to 30%. To get 10% of a number, that's right, divide by 10. $90 divided by 10 is $9. That's right. Now, to go from 10% to 30%, you would, that's right, multiply by 3. $9 times 3 is $27. So you would save $27 because that is 30% of the $90 total. All right, let's keep going. 3 more. Write and solve a problem where 20% is the percent, 30 is the part, and you are looking for the total. All right, so. Actually, let me make that a little bigger. Sorry about that. Okay, you have read 20% of the book. If you have read 30 pages, how many pages is the book in all? All right, so we're going to set up our 2 sides. We have pages on one side. We have read 30 pages, and we are told that that is 20% of the book. So 30 pages is going to match 20%. We are looking for how many pages in all. So if we are looking for the total, we want 100%. Is there a way to go from 20% to 100%? Yes, there is. Multiply by 5, because 5 20s make 100. So if you multiply the percent by 5, multiply the pages by 5, 30 pages times 5 is 150 pages. All right, let's keep going. Write and solve a problem where 27 is the part, 30 is the whole, and you need to find the percent. All right, you got a 27 out of 30 on your quiz. What percentage did you score? So, we know that 30 questions represents 100%. We are looking for what percent would 27 be. So I don't have a direct path from 30 to 27. So let's try some benchmarks in the middle here. I know that 15 would be 50%, but that's not helpful because you can't go from 15 to 27. I know that, let's try another benchmark. 3 would be 10% because if you divide by 10, and that actually is useful because if 3 is 10%, 3 times 9 gives us 27. So 10% times 9 gives us 90%. So it would be a 90%. Because we know that 3 questions right would be 10%, but we got 27 questions right. 3 times 9 is 27. 10 times 9 is 90%. All right, time for our final problem. Write and solve a problem where you need to find 6% of a number. So let me copy our sample. In a video game, you need 200 points to get a star. If you have 6% of the points you need, how many points do you have? That should have said points, not stars. Okay. So we need to find 6% of 200. So let's try this out. We know that 200 is 100% because that's how many points we need. That means that 20 would be 10%. If you divide by 10, right, to go from 100% to 10%, divide by 10, 200 divided by 10 is 20. So that means, but that's still not helpful to get 6%. So we're going to keep going, and we're going to use our other benchmark of 1%. What would 1% be? 10% divided by 10 is 1%. 20 divided by 10 would be 2. So if 2 is 1%, how would I go from 1% to 6%? That's right, multiply by 6. So 2 times 6 is 12. So you have 12 points. Again, work your way down. 20 is 10%, 2 is 1%. And then that means you can use 1% to get to 6% by multiplying by 6. So that would be 12 points. All right, that concludes our video. I hope that this was helpful, and we will see you next time. All right, bye.